What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Storytime. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're here with someone today that I'm very excited to have in, Gilli Apter. Gilli, thank you so much. Did I say your surname correctly?
You did.
I did?
Yeah.
I always get it wrong. I've said so many names incorrectly.
People usually get my first name wrong, actually.
Gilli?
Gilli, Jill, Gillian.
Is Gilli full name? Yeah, then Gilli.
Yes.
If it was like an abbreviation of something, Gilliander, then I'd be like, now it makes sense to like...
Saying, you got it all right. Let's not, you know what I mean?
Let's not take it overboard. And then you're like, actually, Josh just took a guess and nailed it the first time.
Exactly.
Fair. You are a writer, an MC, an international touring comedian, and I can put actress and can I put director too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an actress, no.
No? But you have acted.
No.
So then you're an actress. Boom.
Yeah, I haven't. I've just reacted.
You've just reacted. See, that's the true craft of what acting is. That you.
No, I'm definitely not not an actor. I'm you know, people have often asked me like if I'm an actor and if I would like to be in something, and I always say, if you can make it this,
Yeah.
then yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I've got
that's
no
a
chops.
great way to do it, right?
No acting chops.
Really?
Yeah.
But you have your brand, your image, which you're phenomenal at because it's showing in
comedy.
your career.
If people think that stand-up comedy and acting are interchangeable, but they're not.
Okay.
It's different
Let's
skills.
speak on that because we were chatting in the car on the way here.
Yes.
And we were saying how people sometimes have this misconception of stand-up comedy that you're literally just getting on stage and like taking a chance and hoping it pays off. What is the process like for you with comedy in terms of let's help people understand when you craft a joke?
Yes.
What's this like process of crafting that?
So there's people like you who are very interested in stand-up comedy and understand that it's a thing that takes place as a craft, right? And has skill to it or whatever. And most people, the vast majority of people who consume stand-up comedy have no idea. Like the thing you just said now just blew their minds. They were like, what do you mean craft a joke?
Great.
People think we are absolutely getting up on stage and just winging it and just talking for an hour.
If that was the case, would be phenomenal if it was that easy, let's say.
Phenomenal and impossible.
Yeah.
There is no comedian in the world who does that.
Yeah.
It does not exist. So it's a far cry from what people are experiencing when they see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you personally,
yes.
like we were just talking on the microblading. What's the microneedling then?
That's a facial.
Is that the red one?
Yes. They're like, and your face is on fire.
Okay.
And then
I've never done it.
You look 30 seconds younger than you did when you went in.
That still counts. Yeah. We'll take the 30 seconds. If you do it enough, it adds up eventually to a day.
It's not worth it.
With the microblading joke, for example, it's such a great bit because we watched it again this morning. And the second that bit came on, Jess was like, yep, the whole way through. She was like, I get it, because that's exactly how it felt for me.
Right.
Just to use that as like a brief example.
Yeah. Okay, so...
What was the process of that?
So this is a joke about... just for context, it's a joke about getting your eyebrows microbladed, which is like, you know, they use needles to like carve lines into your brow and fill them with ink, right? That's the concept behind microblading.
Okay.
And there was and it's funny because culture changes. There was a stage where this was very popular. I don't know if it's still as popular. It might be, but it was very popular. And the thing I was seeing everywhere was I was getting it done, but I was also seeing women getting it done, and it just looked horrendous. And I am a very particular person when it comes to my face. I'm like very specific.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get something permanently done on my face without absolute as much control as I can get. Like,
fair.
Like choosing the right person. Some people just wing it when it comes to a cosmetic thing on your face. They're like, well, they're the professionals. Let's go. So all of these things that I'm telling you now is like, as a comedian, you then, while you're lying there, you are thinking about all these things. And that's, I would say, like, a lot of people don't know the difference between like a funny person and a comedian. Like all comedians are funny people.
That's a good point.
But not all funny people can be comedians.
Okay.
And there's
why?
Because the gap is this. When I go for the microblading, we all have funny thoughts, right? We all see things and think they're funny. Like we're all lying there getting this insanely painful procedure done to our face.
Yeah.
And then you might talk about it with a friend and it might be funny. Oh, it's funny that we're willing to subject ourselves to this insane amount of pain.
Yes.
Right? The comedian will think one step further. The comedian will sit and think further about why that's funny and how it can be funnier and what's the next step of it and how else can I exploit this little issue. You know, it's like I'll give you a good example. Today you sent me an address to come here, right?
Yes.
Okay. You sent me
It
an
didn't
address.
work, but yeah.
The address was a street name.
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, the address was a street name.
I would tell by your messages that you were like, dude, I need more. And then I was searching it and I was like, but there isn't more. Like, I don't know what to do.
I was like, give me the name of the establishment, right? Or give me a street address. And then I was having this moment where I was trying to extract this information from you, right? And then I was in the kitchen and I started thinking like, we're living in 2024. Like, if you tell somebody where to go, there should be no follow-up question.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
1,000%.
Like, there should be no reason why I should text you for more information.
Yes.
Right? So here, now I'm in my kitchen thinking of that joke, right? I've left you.
But your brain does that naturally.
Yes.
Because it's your craft, right?
Yeah, well, look, it's because I'm looking for it, okay?
Okay.
But that it's not even looking. It's like any creative enterprise. You're open to. It's like a valve that's open to input, right? And it depends what mood you're in. Obviously, there's some things like I can see and some things I can't see. Some things I see sooner and some things I see later. In my mind, when I was standing there, I was already thinking like, what is this relatable? Does everyone experience this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's funny that I'm like, what's funny is that I'm having this mild bit of like 1% stress over this silly little detail, but I'm like, give me the information. But it's like, that's what comedy is. It's like you string together all these little aggravating things in your day.
Yeah.
And then you've got comedy, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, how do I exploit that now?
Okay.
And sometimes I will sit and think about that moment and extrapolate it into something. And sometimes it'll bore me and I won't.
How do you know when you should continue with it or whether you should go, oh, this is just a funny thought.
Yeah.
I'm bored of it.
We used to have this thing, me and a friend of mine, a comedian. One day we were talking, we were like, is this is a bit. This is like 10 minutes. This is a 10-minute bit.
Yeah.
And then you'd start writing it and you'd be like, maybe it's just like one joke. Then it'd be like, could just be a throwaway.
Just
and
a
eventually it'd be
throwaway,
like, this is a tweet.
This is a tweet. Listen, that's tricky on its own, writing
But
good
like,
tweets.
Eventually, it depends. If the thing inspires you, it will become something. And if it doesn't inspire you, it won't. And some people are very methodical. They'll sit down, they'll write and write and write. Sometimes you don't know if you've got something until you're on stage. Like sometimes
That's terrifying.
I'm not sure. And I'll go and I'll try it. And it will fail or succeed. And sometimes you just absolutely know something's going to land.
You just know,
you just
like
know.
innately that like this is going to work.
Yeah.
Because stand-up comedy is, I can't really think of anything else that follows the same line of like, the only way to figure out if you can do it is to get told by 100 people that you can't.
Yes.
That's the only way that you'll ever figure it out. You can't like in your bedroom practice my lines in front of camera and be like, that was good.
No.
You know, like you have to go out there, have strangers, which is also, I think, the difference between a funny person and a comedian. The relationship that I have with a friend or a partner is what builds that funny moment.
Yes.
Because the friend is going, oh, that's such a Josh thing to do. Whereas strangers are like, we don't know who this person is.
Yes.
Whereas you are relatable to hundreds of different types of people all at the same time with one joke.
Well, the thing that you're describing is actually very key to what comedians do.
Yeah.
Because when you are starting, you wish that everybody knew you. And the reason you wish that is not fame or whatever. You wish it so that there could be more context for the way you're speaking about something, right? Especially if it's something controversial, right? Let's say you're a white comedian doing a joke about race, okay?
Yeah.
It might be a great joke, but you might not get it off the ground because you don't have, the audience doesn't know that you mean well, right? So you wish you could have that, that knowledge that people know who you are and so they forgive you. or they are more tolerant of you, or whatever it is. But the truth is, you that's never really a luxury. You have to be able to write jokes and put stuff out that can just stand on its own 2 feet. Then that's the learning. That's what you have to learn how to do.
Because it's almost like, on your point of that the more famous or well-known comedians become, everyone's got their own brand, right?
Yeah.
Chris Rock had a brand,
Sure.
Eddie Murphy had a brand, Adam Sandler has a brand, Joe Rogan, whoever. People know you for that brand, so you can almost start getting away with more.
Well, you can also play to your audience, you know. You might not, other people who don't know you might not respond, but your audience will respond well, you know.
Yeah.
But that's a luxury that very few comedians or performers have, is a big audience that knows them.
Yeah.
For the most part, you're just doing it to strangers, and, you know, that's what you have to learn how to do in stand-up is, yes, you have to learn how to write jokes and tell jokes, but you also have to learn how to really be yourself as quickly as possible on a stage.
Okay.
You know, they have to know that is such a Josh thing.
Yeah.
They have to know, they've never met me before, they've never seen me, they come watch a show, and within 30 seconds, they have to have that same feeling in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Of immediately picking up, oh, you that
and
type
within a few minutes, it's like, oh, we get this person.
Yeah.
You know?
What is your, I don't know if this is a good question. Forgive me if it's wrong. What is your go-to to help the audience do that?
What?
Wrong? Knew it. I knew it.
You know what?
Let's try this again. Yeah.
Some people have a persona. I've been thinking about the concept of a persona for years. For years, I've been like, if only I had a persona, you know.
Yeah.
That would make things so much easier if I could just have a persona of some kind. And I have found it to be very elusive. Like I can see it on other people, on other performers, and I can't really see it in myself. I don't know. It's almost like a track or a gear that they shift into, and you know that's the stage version and that's the off-stage version.
Okay.
And for me, I really struggle to find that difference.
Really?
Yeah.
You can kind of flow right through.
Well, it just,
Stage
I
off
don't know
stage.
that that's a good thing necessarily, but it just doesn't feel like I've got a gear that I shift into when I'm on stage that is just something that I'm putting on almost.
Well, your show doesn't feel performative. It feels you.
I mean, what comedian feels performative to you?
Oh, I'll give you a great example. Ones that do, if a comedian's physicality
Yes.
is what
Right.
the joke is dependent on,
Right.
I can understand that being like, I get on stage and then rah, 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 and everyone, you know,
Yes.
and there's like comedians that do it phenomenally, but then you watch like when Dave Chappelle gets on stage, dude's lighting a cigarette,
Yes.
taking a seat, talking to the audience, and I'm like, he's so
But that is
Dave Chappelle.
But that is performative.
You think so?
Yeah. I'm not saying it's not him and who he is. It is.
Yeah.
He's utterly relaxed.
He's still choosing that
That's
avenue.
choice. Yeah.
Okay.
And he is, we do have a persona for him. You know.
Yeah. See, my persona of Dave Chappelle is based on the famous stories that I know of him.
Right.
That he turned down the 50 mil and then
Right.
left Hollywood, and then like
But I
he's
don't
this
even
like
mean that.
rebel.
I don't even mean that as a persona in terms of like not the story. The thing that you see on stage of the way a comedian is speaking, and then they get off stage and you have a conversation with them and there's a difference.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like, yeah,
I would I would love to meet Theo Von,
yeah, right.
because I would
So
be
exactly.
fascinated to know whether he's like that.
Well, Theo Von is a great example because you have the stage version of him and then you've got the podcast version of him.
Which is even
Right.
more different.
So you can see there's a difference in the way that they're
Yes.
coming across. Right?
Okay.
So that's the shift that I'm talking about.
Okay. Because he's able to do what I think, he does a podcast by himself,
Right.
which is him talking in the camera for an hour.
Right.
That's insane to
Yeah.
me. And he'll do that every week.
Yeah.
And he's got these euphemisms and these metaphors, and he's like, surely he sits at home with a book and just M&Ms the crap out of
Yeah,
himself
probably.
of just like this joke, this joke, this joke, that, you know, like surely he's doing that, study the
Yeah.
dictionary type vibe.
Yeah. I think some people have a very like robust mind where they are constantly, they've got like the ability to just put out stuff a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think I've shifted. I used to be more like that. I'm not like that so much anymore.
You're specifically picking now.
Yeah, I'm not so, I used to walk around and everything was a joke to me. I was like, that box is funny. Ha ha, that cap.
Yeah.
You know? Like everything. Like look at that dick. Anything.
Yeah.
Anything, you know? I I would have something for anything. And these days I'm not so like aggressively creative like that. I think it's a phase, but I don't know. Like you talk about jokes. Like last night, I did this joke. I opened my set last night, and I always try to remind myself to like open with something funny and relatable, because sometimes I get on stage and I waffle up front, and I immediately start talking to people, and it makes the audience feel super insecure. At least when I do it.
Really?
Yeah. At least I would say like, that's how I have, if ever I have failed on stage, it's usually because I've come on stage and started waffling without a plan.
What to you? Oh, like crowd work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is fine. I can do great crowd work.
Very popular nowadays. Crowd
Yes.
work.
And I love doing it, except not right as the first thing that comes out of my mouth. So I have tried to remind myself, especially like last night, I hadn't done a show in a long time. I was like, Gilli, just go up there and say some funny shit before you start taking risks. Because I will start taking risks immediately. And if the risk does not pay off in the first 2-3 minutes, it just derails. And then they start to lose. The audience like just doesn't even believe in comedy anymore. And then you have got so much work to do to bring them back. So I always try to remind myself, like, just try to say one funny thing before you start, you know, dicking around. So last night I worked on this thing, and I only worked on it I'd worked on it for like a day or two, and it was about Cape Town being overtaken by Joburgers, right?
Very true.
About how like suddenly, and my thing was like, okay, this show happened very quickly, and you start to build these things and you start to come up with little jokes as you are thinking about the thing, right? So I was like, okay, this show got sold out really quickly, right? That I put up the other day. And I was like, why? And I thought, you know what? It's because of the Joburgers. That's who's come to the show.
Oh.
It would never happen so fast if it wasn't for them.
No.
And so then I was like, okay, so statistically that tells me there's a lot of people from Joburg in the crowd. That gets a big response, right? Because it's true.
But
right?
the fact that you're connecting those dots,
that's what you do, right?
Crazy cool.
Then I'm like, okay, I just want you, Cape Townians, I want to put you at ease. I want you to know this is not, I don't want you to blame the government. I don't want you to blame the crime in Joburg. We've been planning this for a very long time.
Okay.
You know, we've been planning this for 20 years, 1 December at a time.
Yeah.
And I know what you went through as Cape Townians. I know in mid-January, you were like, any day they're going to leave. Any day.
Yeah.
And by the end of January, like, we are still seeing the GP number plates.
So true.
And by the end of February, you're like, it's still summer. They'll go home. And now in June, you're like, fuck.
They haven't left.
They haven't left.
Yeah.
They're here to stay.
Yeah.
So I was working on like,
So true.
on this, that's what I worked on, right? And then I said, I didn't really have like an ending. I moved on from it into my set.
Yeah.
But afterwards, I was telling a friend of mine that I had this really weird experience before the show, which is that the security guard outside the venue said to me, I met him earlier in the afternoon, then I went home, and then I came back for the show.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I know you. And I said, from where? He goes, and he gave me the name of a coffee shop in Johannesburg, right? And it's like, I used to manage that coffee shop, and now he works here, right? And my friend, I was telling my friend the story, she's like, even the security guys moved from Joburg, okay? And I was like, you know?
Brilliant.
Yes. Because he was
That's
standing
brilliant.
right outside the window the entire time. It would have been so perfect. And so it's like, you know, you can think and think and think and think and think, and then something presents itself. And if you're not like, if your feelers aren't open, you'll miss it.
Yeah. I've experienced very briefly a similar feeling over the last year. We've been writing and starting pre-production for a show that with a group of people,
Right.
that we're very excited about. But for the longest time, I'd said to someone who I asked to be my mentor, that's a close friend of mine, and he was pushing to get me to write something. And I kept saying to him, dude, like, I don't write. I don't know how to write. I can act and I can learn the lines on a page when you give them to me, and I can give them meaning, and I love the emotional attachment of it and whatever. but I don't know how to write it myself. So he was like, well, do you have any ideas? Like, write an idea down of a show. Like, what to you would be cool to see? And I was like, shit, that I can do.
Right.
Like, this happened in my life, that happened in my life. That's all. Let's try, connect all these different things. And then had this, thankfully, great concept for a show, and they brought writers in to kind of go through that. But since having that in front of me, now things happen, and I'm like,
Yeah,
we put that in.
that would be good, and this would be good, and what about that? And because you've like opened up the tap.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also opened me up to an entirely different side of the industry that I'm like, oh, I had no idea that this was the process.
Right.
Like, there's the saying of when you're an actor and you audition for something, it's always just like, listen, you just weren't the right fit.
Right.
And I'm always like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I like to look at it like a sport, right? Of it's me versus you.
Yeah.
And we have to see who can jump the furthest. If you jump further, very clearly you're the better jumper. But then in anything that's art,
It's a very masculine approach.
I know, right? Yeah, I know, because I get told that a lot by
okay.
friends of mine that,
Yeah.
but it helps me to be
Yes.
like, okay, because
That's
then
right.
if I can tell myself, Josh, you need to be better at these 5 things, then you'll be better.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
can't just be like, oh, well, they weren't feeling me. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a bullshit issues. Until we started bringing people in to read, and someone would read, and I'd go, there's just something about the other person. And I'm like, shit,
And you
I've
can't
done the
articulate it.
thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint what that one thing is. Now it's making sense to me. So like you say, that tap being open.
Yes.
My perspective on that side of the industry has been opened so much by like, oh, they don't just say these things to make you feel good.
No.
It's genuinely the way it works. Like, it's a
100%.
weird process.
If I was ever casting anybody in like my directing life, sometimes it's specifics. Sometimes, you need to have a certain look, let's say. But 90% of the time, it's like, this feels right. And what does that mean, right? We don't know what that means, but we do know what it means. It's actually, and it depends on your level of experience, right? If you're dealing with a very experienced director, it feels right means from seeing this, can project forward and know that this person is going to do what I need them to do physically, emotionally, with their face, whatever it is, they can complete the task.
Yeah.
It just feels very sensual, right? It doesn't feel like you can actually say what it is, but it comes from experience of knowing, okay, I don't know, the way this person connects with me emotionally isn't it's not connecting, it's not happening. And it's from experience, and I don't think it's so,
up in the air, esoteric.
If you have to sit down and figure out why one person reads better for you than another, there's some reasons there.
Yeah.
It's not all, some of it is just the way somebody makes you feel, right? But the way somebody makes you feel is not completely intangible. There's a reason they're doing that. And whatever that reason is the reason.
Yeah, exactly. And you needed that person to have that moment of like, okay,
Yes.
they brought, and that's technically what the job is of. I was reading, we were taping for scenes the other day with a friend of mine, the one that's here from Tennessee, from the States. And we're running through these tapes, and first time we've worked together before, we've never recorded and taped before. And the input that he was giving as a reader was looking at the lines and go, well, what if you just said that and acted like you just didn't want to do it, even though the line says like, yeah, I'll do it. Or for example, I was like, shit, I didn't think of that way of spinning it.
Right.
And like, if it wasn't for him looking at it and going, dude, my perspective and who I am as a person would think to maybe go, well, I'll just say I'll do it, then I'm actually not going to.
Right, like how to get that out of you.
Right? And I'm like, damn, dude, good idea. And then you play with it. And now all my other scenes I'm looking at and going like, shit, there's so many options to something that like make a choice and fucking stick to it and send that out, because there's so many options at this thing, which to me is the same with comedy. Like I was saying to you in the car of like, you can deliver one line and choose to do it this way.
Correct.
And it's not funny.
Yeah.
And then you switch your delivery and suddenly it's the punchline of the bit.
It happens all the time in comedy.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it as you were talking about like the skill you end up having. And by the way, everything you're doing is stuff you're learning, right? So the fact that you just got that new input is like, oh, it opened up a whole new world and a way for you to work, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like really at the beginning of a craft. It's like, what, the first 10 years?
Yeah.
That's the beginning, you know? And it's like, we're under a lot of pressure to just know how to do what we have to do because you get booked to do something and you have to just know how to do it. But you're still learning a lot of stuff, right? I'm still learning a lot of stuff. So it's like, that's just more stuff in your wheelhouse. And then you wonder, you look at these people who are your heroes, like, no, they've just been doing that for 25 years or 30 years or 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's because that's how long it takes to get the thing, to learn the thing, to put that, to figure it out that you can do it like this and not like that, you know? With stand-up, it's like, I really struggle to get out of my way of doing something, even if it's not working. Sometimes I'll do a joke again and again and again. And it'll take me a long time to realize, like, that joke doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
And then I try to do it differently. It's very rare that it will work. Sometimes I'll just go straight back to the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. It's hard sometimes for me to break out of a way of doing something. But sometimes I had one joke that I used to do that I thought was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved it. I loved this joke, and the punchline would never get a laugh. Never. I was like, but it's so funny. And then I just literally changed the delivery and the way I say the punchline. I now say it in a silly way with a bit of like, it's got like a comical physicality to it.
Yeah.
It's quite serious.
Yeah.
And it's from the difference of zero sound to huge laughter.
Just in that delivery of that one line. But and what's key to that as well is that you had the knowledge of this is a good joke.
Yes.
There's just something missing.
So it's frustrating because now I don't know, is like, are they laughing because I'm making a funny sound? But it's almost like, okay, well, whatever. It's not, you don't get to be like, guys, I want to do it for you the other way.
Exactly.
And actually you'll see that it was funny before.
Yeah.
You know?
Tell me which you prefer.
Yeah.
We're going to do it all over again.
And that, no, we've told you which we prefer. You've done it 20 times and it works like this, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
so
well played.
Choose, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to break down because I wanted to ask you questions on this as well. I wrote down, again, I did a whole bunch of
research.
Yeah, bo. So 2015 was when you started with your own stand-up. But prior, you were writing for other comedians and for other shows as well.
Yes. TV writing, TV comedy writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then in 2018, you performed at the Kings and Queens of Comedy in the Sun Arena.
Oh, forgot about that. Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
And then nominated for Best Newcomer of the Savannah Comics Choice Awards.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were selected to perform on Trevor Noah's Nationwild tour.
Yeah.
So many questions that I have on those different things. But firstly, to go into moving from writing to then performing your own material as well, why the choice to now do both? What was it for you that,
I think I always wanted to be a performer. When I was very young, I wanted to be a performer, like when I was a kid, from when I was a kid. And I think, I don't know, it just got sort of beaten out of me in a way. I did drama at school and I always wanted to do that. I didn't do very well. And I think I just got discouraged, you know. And I hadn't found exactly the thing that I was supposed to be doing, I guess, which was meant to be comedy. And I just hadn't latched onto it in the right way. And also I realized now that like actually I wanted to be a filmmaker. Like I wanted to be a director.
Okay.
And I went to film school. And
you went to AFTA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after film school, it's very hard to become a director. It's really hard to just get the experience and to get the work, especially when you're new. It's like virtually impossible because there is a lot of money involved and nobody wants to give a new person with no experience an absolute ton of money to make anything.
Yeah.
You know? That's just how it is.
That doesn't happen.
So it's really hard to get the experience as a filmmaker. But what you can do is write. Writing, for me, what I discovered was just an easier way in. So I could, because you can do it in stages. Directing, you can't really do in stages. You can do small things and then big things, but everything that you're doing has a budget attached to it. And so the stakes are very high. As a writer in TV, a lot of people ask me or have asked me over the years, how do you get into TV writing? And there's almost no one answer. It's a very hard question to answer. I was writing for Nik Rabinowitz.
Yes.
But before that, I got asked to, I don't even know how I got this job, but I was I managed to get myself into the writer's room for a sitcom for Mark Lottering.
Okay.
And there was a head writer, there were a few storyliners, and I was what you call a storyliner, I guess. I didn't write scripts. I helped in the room with putting the story together of each episode, right?
Okay, so the actual timeline of what happens.
Yes.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, you're also throwing in jokes and ideas, right?
Yeah.
And that allows you to be a person in that room and to see how the process goes without actually writing. You know, you don't write scripts.
Okay.
They don't trust you with scripts when you're doing that.
Yeah.
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 So you write outlines and you work on the story structure and stuff like that. And then slowly I managed to graduate into script writing on other shows, right?
Yeah.
Bit by bit, this person refers you to another job, that person refers you to another job eventually. But you can get the experience in a way that you can't in directing.
Yeah.
And but the thing that it also developed was my ability to write comedy. So I only worked on comedy. I only worked on sitcom. I only worked on then writing for Nik. I wrote jokes, you know, and I had that like sort of comedy muscle constantly working.
Okay.
And I think I always wanted to do stand-up. I just did not have the guts to do it. And
It's terrifying.
it's terrifying the first time. Yeah. And then I was sort of pushed and encouraged. Nik encouraged me a lot. And yeah, just got enough encouragement and enough. It's something that you have to build. You know, eventually I met the Goliaths. I met Jason Goliath and Donovan Goliath, actually. And I met them at a corporate that I was doing with Nik. And they said to me, why don't you perform? And he said, well, I've been telling her for years. And they said, well, you know, we do a comedy night every Sunday night. Why don't you come? And they
It's like you don't really have a choice in this now. Yeah.
yeah. And so they had a show called The Box. It was in Maboneng every Sunday night. And so I started going to those shows and watching. And Jason would stand at the door, and every Sunday night I would come to the show, and every Sunday night I would walk out the door, and Jason would go like, "Bark, bark, 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 bark," like,
Yeah.
chick, call me chicken every night, every time. And eventually I just booked a day.
That's terrifying. Like,
Yeah. And eventually I booked a date. And so that's why I say it's like, you know what it is? A lot of young, aspiring people who want to do comedy often ask me like, how do I do it? How do I start comedy? You know, from nowhere. And my advice, I used to get all kinds of advice. Oh, write jokes, do this, have 5 minutes, whatever. The way you start comedy is you go to open mic nights and you don't perform. Watch. Because what happens is when you have watched enough bad comedy, it will give you the confidence. It'll give you confidence because you're going to sit there and go, I can do that.
yeah.
That's what happens to you. If you watch the greats on Netflix constantly, you think it's impossible,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Like, how am I ever going to get there? How do you do that? Right? But if you go watch live comedy, especially open mic nights, you will see great comedians and you will see terrible comedians. And you will see great comedians having a bad night. And you'll see a guy just starting who had a lucky night. And then the next week you'll see him bomb. And so you will see that it is a craft and that people are learning and that you can learn and that if they can do it, you can do it. And if somebody does badly, it just is. It's like, it makes you understand that there is a process.
Yes. Okay.
So that's what I did. I watched enough that I was like, I could probably do that. And then you do it. So that's how I started. It wasn't like a straight line. It was like slowly building the courage, writing the thing, getting it down on a piece of paper, like projecting myself saying it, going over it in my head over and over and over, practicing while I was driving, at home in the mirror, whatever.
Jeez,
in the shower, just going over the jokes, thinking of a better idea for the joke, writing it down, just like nothing was on my
really
mind.
getting it in.
Yeah. It was weeks. It was the only thing on my mind was that 5-minute set. Weeks. Just like churning it over and over and over obsessively. You have to be obsessed with stand-up.
And that's for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you need to do an hour special.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Well, it's not.
It's so long.
You know what? I used to watch Nik, right? I would work with him. And the way Nik works is like, or the way the way it works, it's in my experience at least, when you're working with a comedian on writing something, is you're not writing stuff for them. It's not like the 50s where you write, Woody Allen, like writing jokes and like giving it to the guy, and like getting a hot dog,
Yeah.
It's especially with the way we do comedy these days, which is very personal. Like, so Nik would come in. He is a very hardworking comedian, like very, very thorough. He will come in with a stack, with a book like this of ideas and jokes that he has written for weeks and months. Okay, it's enormous. It's like 30 pages. And we sit together and try things. He'll try things. I'm like, yes, then maybe not. Yes, let's add this. You know what I mean? So it's, but comedians do it with each other all the time unconsciously, right? Oh, that's a funny thing. You should add this. You should do a thing. You know, it'd be funny if you ended it like this. A lot of my punchlines come from other comics.
Wow.
So it's like,
great to have the perspective.
yeah, because you
like I
can't
was
see
saying
it,
on
right?
an audition, your friend just goes like, maybe just try it this way.
Correct.
Actually, I didn't think of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I would watch that process, right? And we would work and work and work. And then that night, let's say at the end of the week, on the Friday night, he would have the first show booked, right? A casual, like, sort of a coffee shop or a restaurant that he's doing his new material, you know? And I would be sitting with him that day, looking through these reams of things, like lots of like jokes and great stuff or whatever. And I'd be like, there's no way, how's he going to do this tonight? How is he going to do it? Like, this is impossible. It's impossible that we are sitting here now. It's complete, it's in tatters. Like, how's he going to go up and do it? And then I would watch him get on stage. And I would watch, I have on my laptop open, every single joke of a full hour of comedy would be there in order. And sometimes he'd forget something and he'd go back and put it in. And I'd be like scrolling back up on the laptop and see the jokes, okay? And I never understood. I was like you. I never understood how it was possible. And now I can tell you, almost 10 years later, I completely understand how it works. Because your brain just develops a facility for it. It's like it's unbelievable. And people don't understand. They're like, how do you do an hour of stand-up? It's like, I didn't get up and do an hour of stand-up. I did 5.
I see.
I did 5 for 3 years. Then I did 5 to 7. Then I did 10. Then you do 15. Then you do 20. Then people start trusting you and booking you for stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then while you're doing that, you're also developing other ideas, right? Then you go back, you do 5 somewhere, you do 15 somewhere, you do 20 somewhere else, you do 7 somewhere else, you do 28 somewhere else, then you do 30, right? Your first 30, very scary to do your first 30. But then you're still going back to clubs and doing 7. And then you're going back to 10. And then sometimes you're doing 15. And sometimes you're doing 20. And then you go 30. You do more 30, more 30. Then you're doing 45, right? 45, because you have all these ideas that you didn't get to use and all the different 10s that you're doing. You put them all together, right? Then you do an hour. Suddenly an hour is like all the jokes you have ever written in your life are in that hour, you know? So it's like a real process over many, many, many years.
That's what fascinates me in comedy, when someone will make a joke at like 5 minutes in, and then 20 minutes later they're on a whole nother joke story bit.
Yes.
And they relate it back.
Yes.
And I'm like, you wrote those 2 jokes at 2 completely different times in your life.
Yeah. Just
whatever the divide, there's definitely a divide, and you found a way to like loop it back around.
Yeah.
Which is such a crowd winner as well when someone does that.
Callback. It's called a callback.
A callback.
There's a name for it.
It's so good.
But you see, everything in that the fact that has a name tells you that
it's that plan.
It's a thing. There's a thing. It's constructed.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's the one craft that I'm like, I don't know if I will ever stick my toes into the water of comedy in terms of stand-up. It's like, I don't think I have the resiliency for it. I'd get up and like bomb once and be like, thank you, I'm gonna go never do this again.
What interests me is that people will say something like what you're saying, in the sense of like you don't have to do it, but the only reason you would do it is because you have a desperate desire.
Yeah.
It's the only reason to do stand-up. Do you know what I mean? Because people are like, sometimes it's different with you, you're a performer, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll get a person like a physiotherapist, and she'll be like, I could never do that. And I'm like, you don't ever have to.
You don't have to, yeah. No one's telling you to, yeah.
No one's asking you to. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Comedy industry is going to be fine without you. Don't worry. We got this.
Yeah, you're where you're supposed to be. Don't worry. Yeah.
Like I don't go to the orthodontist and be like, I could never do that.
Yeah,
Like,
this is not for me. Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
Yes. No, it takes years of training and a deep desire, you know?
That's a really good, that's a really good one.
And it happens constantly. But I know where it comes from. It comes from the fact that stand-up does something to people in that when they see it, it hits them on a very visceral, social survival level, right? They are picturing themselves doing it because it seems like somebody just talking. So a lot of people picture themselves doing it. And if you, from the ground, and I mean from the ground, like you've never told a joke in front of an audience, look at a person doing an hour of jokes in front of the audience, it seems terrifying from where you're standing. But you are ignoring the hours, minutes, years, seconds in between of training that has gotten the person to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because that's what it is. It's training.
I think people also, it's the same thing with like musicians, where you watch a musician on stage and immediately, all of us do this. We watch a musician on stage and you go like, fuck, it'd be cool to do that, because you're watching thousands of people go like, I love your music. Same with comedy. You're watching someone make other people laugh and you're like, fuck, it must feel so cool to do that. Like there's no better feeling. We were watching, damn it, South Africa versus someone at Anthony's house. Yeah, I can't remember. And Frans Steyn injured his foot, or his shoe came off or something. And I was like, don't worry, Frans, just like twirl on that thing and then keep going.
But he's laugh. Yes. So that's the feeling.
I was so proud of myself. But it was the yeah. So it was relevant at the time. It was relevant for like 2 weeks of our life. But the room went quiet, and I knew that like, if I throw something here and it's on point, the whole room will laugh, and everyone did. And I was like, there's no better feeling than getting that timing perfect of everyone to go like, holy shit, dude, how did you connect those two things?
Yes.
And I think that's maybe why we have this fascination with comedy of being like,
because we all know that feeling.
Yes, everyone's had that moment, right?
Everyone's had at least one moment like that.
Yeah.
And that's often how I describe stand-up. I'm like, just think of the time you said that funny thing and everyone laughed. I'm like, that's the feeling forever.
It's euphoric when everyone's like, damn, you nailed it.
Yes. However, I will tell you that the fear diminishes, and so does the euphoria.
Yeah, see, that's terrifying then as well.
Yeah.
So we're like, everyone laughs and you're like, cool.
Pretty much. You don't, you cannot sustain that level of euphoria hour after hour, night after night. It's not realistic. It's the same as if you were constantly terrified. You could not be constantly terrified.
True.
Hour after hour, night after night. They both diminish.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the way that Rogan talks about it with his new club, the spaceship, the mothership, thank you. The spaceship. Jeez, like the mothership. And he talks about how you'll see world famous comedians rock up on a Tuesday and do 5 minutes, 10 minutes and literally go, okay, that didn't work.
Yes.
And they move on with their day.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, no one laughed.
So that's the thing with the euphoria, right? Stand up can make you feel like a god, okay?
Yes.
But very quickly, it can make you feel less than human.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So while you are on stage and getting all that adulation, you're a fool if you buy into it. You're a fool because tomorrow you are so embarrassed and humiliated. And those things are very alive for you all the time. They're very alive. Like last night, my show went fantastically well. But 2 weeks before, I did a 10-minute set and it bombed. You know what I mean? And like the more that it's almost like if it, and there's different levels that you learn to assess things with. It's like sometimes it goes so well that you're like, oh, this isn't me.
Really?
Yes.
That you're like, why is it this good?
Because you have, when you perform a lot, you get an average. right? You're not judging yourself on each show. You are judging yourself on average. How's it going on average, right? How's it going out of 10? Not 20. How did it go this year? Not how did it go that one time,
Okay.
right?
Okay, I understand
So
that.
you are like, and it goes the other way. Sometimes it goes so terribly, and it's
You
not
aren't the
much to
problem.
do with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a problem with the way that the audience has formed, and in the beginning, like, you blame yourself for everything, which is right, because you don't have enough, like, the variables keep changing when you start, right?
see.
Like, you're uncertain, you can't assess the crowd, you don't know if it's the fact that you're insecure or the fact that your jokes aren't, there's too much to assess, right? So it's all on you. I'm bad. Okay, that didn't work because I didn't do this well, or whatever it is. Everything is a result of something you're doing.
Okay.
When you get to a level that is at least proficient, okay, where you know that most of the time it's going well, because that's how it is, right? In the beginning, out of 10, you have to assess over time, right? Out of 10, how am I doing? Okay, I did really well twice, and the others were bad. Then it's like,
See.
oh, I did well 3 times, and the others were average. Oh, now I'm doing well half the time. It's hit and miss when I get up there.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's like, okay, I'm mostly doing well. But the ones where I'm failing, it's not a total bomb. Right?
Okay.
So if all of the averages start coming up eventually when you get good at it. And so then once you have enough experience, you can go into a room, do your show. If it hasn't gone well, you can be like, there's always reasons. It's like, why? Okay. Oh, because when I started, that thing happened, and then I didn't get them back, and then they didn't trust me, and then I had the heckler, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes the audience just doesn't work, or you're in a new space, you weren't feeling well that day, whatever, right? But there are reasons. And sometimes it's the same for when it goes really well. Sometimes it goes much better than it ever does. And you have to know that it's not you. You are doing that. But you also know that extra 30%
Was an
also the
add-on.
audience,
Yeah.
just like when it goes badly.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So it's like you're constantly sort of
Assessing.
working out your average of performance.
Yeah.
You know, it's not...
What is your way to deal with the hecklers?
well,
Do you encourage it because it gives you the chance to lay something?
it depends. There isn't a lot of it going on in general. I remember having some of the most like glorious moments on stage is like somebody shouts something out and you top them.
What?
And it's like,
That must be the best feeling.
it is. It's like they're throwing a fireball at you to kill you, and you catch the fireball and you throw it back and it explodes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a great feeling, but it's rare because heckling mostly is if it's not done by, I don't even know how to describe like what a perfect heckler is, but
Yeah.
I can tell you most of the time it's people who have no impulse control
Okay.
or they're very drunk.
That's probably most of the time.
And actually, it's a very difficult thing to deal with. I was speaking to my friend Kate Pinchuk. She's a comedian, local comedian here in Cape Town.
Yeah.
Great comedian. And she was asking me like how I deal with that stuff because I had a show where I had 3 people sitting on the stage and they were just interjecting in every single joke. They just had a little chirp for everything. And they were right next to me and the audience was getting frustrated with them. And it doesn't work to attack them because then the audience doesn't like you. They don't want you to humiliate anyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Why? Because they like feel sorry for that person.
Yeah, well, you learn when you do stand-up. The first time you say a mean thing to an audience member, the audience is like, you know, we're not on board with this.
Because to them, you
Unless-
punching down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Unless the person is being really belligerent towards you.
Okay.
And then they're on your side. But typically it's not somebody being belligerent. It's just somebody who wants to be involved and thinks that they have to interject. It's impulse control, right? And in that situation, there's actually, in my opinion, there's actually very little you can do. Sometimes I just hard talk over them. I just keep going hard. And I have to like pretend like there isn't like a thing sitting here in my brain, like distracting every single thing that I do.
Immensely frustrating.
It's very frustrating. So I did a show somewhere recently where in the show there's a break. And I'd had this experience before where I had a heckler like this of a person who just wouldn't stop chirping me. And I remember that show, I was like, I didn't know how to deal with it. And later I realized I should have had him removed during the break. That's the way to deal with it.
There we go.
So I was in this first half of the show and I was just like powering through because I knew, I was like, I'm going to get rid of these people in the break. I'm just going to get the management to come and ask them to leave. Like, that's the only way to deal with them. And then they left of their own accord. They just got up and they left. And the audience was so happy they clapped. And I...
Really?
Yes. And it was like just a lucky thing. Honestly, it's very hard to do anything about.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes you get a heckler that's throwing you a few things and you can land it back and it's great. But if it continues, it becomes tiresome. And the problem with it is, like, the way I often describe when you're talking to people in the audience, it's a kind of it's like a tandem skydive. Okay. Your job as the person who's in control is to get both of you to the ground safely.
Yeah.
Right? You can't toss them out.
That's true.
And they have to stop flailing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have to stop flailing.
They have to trust you.
And they have to trust you. But they don't know that that's a process that's happening.
Because they don't have any wherewithal to understand the craft of it. Yeah. So they're just guessing, and you're like, I'm going to try to control.
They don't even know what they're doing. And I'm like, I have to get this person to the ground and me. And all of, like, you know what I mean? I have to land this thing together.
Jeez, I don't, see that, like, I feel like my go-to would be like, hey, dude, just shut the, like...
So sometimes it is. Sometimes I do what my friend Glenn Biederman and Pam taught me, which is...
That's great as well. Yeah. Completely just shut it off. Yeah. There's Chris DiStefano does...
I saw it live not long ago.
Oh, that must have been phenomenal. He has his 9/11 bit.
I don't remember.
There's a famous video of him performing it hammered.
Oh, right.
Like, hammered.
Yeah.
Gets up on stage and he's just like, you could tell that he was just there having a good time, and someone was like, it's Chris.
Right.
Dude, you got to tell that joke. And you can see he's like red in the face, had probably a few too many, gets on stage and just nails it. And it's like, I'll find you I want to tell you the actual views on the exact clip. And my mate and I were watching it and saying, like, how are you that hammered and you can still, and the only thing I could revert it to in my limited knowledge was that he's probably there, 9/11 stand-up comedy, there, nearly 1 million views, and that's not even the original one.
Sure.
You've probably done that joke
1,000
so many times that when you hammered, you're just going da 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 da, and it's going exactly the way you want it.
Yeah,
like,
you can do it. There's some of the sometimes you do something so much that while you're on stage, you start to have an out of body experience. You're like, am I saying these words? Did I finish the joke?
Cool. Yeah.
Like, and like your mouth is moving. It's not cool actually. Because it's like you are not in the moment. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. You kind of remove yourself from what's going on around you.
And you're like, what comes next?
That is terrifying.
I realized last night there were moments where I didn't know what was next. And I had my phone with me. Sometimes in a intimate show, I'll just check on my list.
Oh, that's cool.
And I do it sometimes. And because especially last night, I hadn't done the show in like more than a month. So I wasn't like very confident. And I had the phone next to me just to see if I'd done what I needed to do, actually, because I didn't want to miss out there's some stuff I couldn't go back to. So I wanted to make sure that I'd done enough of it. Anyway, but at some point I put it aside. And at some point I knew that I had this joke that I wanted to do next, but I couldn't remember what it was. So I do this thing where I started talking to the audience. To buy time.
Trying to recall.
But the truth is, like, it's not effective, because it's like I'm having a conversation with a person. I can't think while I'm having a conversation with a person.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like this weird thing that comedians have all kinds of little tics that are happening, and really what's happening is they're thinking.
They're trying to recall what the next line is. See, like on a set, I forget my line. You just go, whoops.
Yeah.
Let's just do that again quickly. Yeah. Like worst case.
Yeah.
Yeah. For you, it's like 1,000 people are watching you, waiting for you to say that next word.
Yes.
I think that's probably what my biggest fear is towards stand-up comedy, is that like I would get 10 minutes in and then go, fuck, what was the next joke?
But you know what? I used to do that all the time. I used to go on stage when I was doing 5 to 10 minute sets. One of my biggest things was remembering the jokes, because I had lots of jokes. I didn't just have those 10 minutes. I was so always like jealous of comedians who just had that 10-minute set, so they couldn't really forget.
Where they tell like one story.
One story.
Like
a
Bert
story.
Kreischer's
So
Machine.
jealous of stories because it's like, I was touring with Skulk a lot many years ago. Skulk was ZAnews, and I was always so jealous of his hour because the hour was 4 stories, and I was like,
Jeez.
in my 20 minutes there are 25 jokes, that I have to remember. And in those first years when I was doing 5-10 minutes and I hadn't developed this like memory facility, I would, before I go on stage, I would like drill myself on the order of these things, and then I would go out on stage, forget something, know that I've forgotten something but won't know what it was. And there's a timing issue with stand-up, right? You're on stage, there's a clock, you can't go on and on and on. You have to be off stage at some point, right? And especially when you're starting, it's very strict. It's like, if you've got a 7-minute set and if you go to 9, 10, okay. If you go to 12, big no-no.
Okay.
So it's like you are trying to get everything done in the time, and I would be so obsessed with trying to remember the order of things, and then I would come off stage and realize, I forgot that whole joke, or I forgot this, or that I put that one instead of the other. You know what I mean? And it would happen again and again and again, and I didn't realize it. Years later, I realized that it had been years since I had forgotten a joke. Years.
Wow.
And I hadn't even realized that it happened. So it's like these things happen when you do something for a long time. It's just training,
Yeah. It becomes easy for you to sort of go through the
It just becomes
phases of it.
almost.
Yeah. I want to gift you something quickly because I have one final question.
So
going
thrilling.
into- yeah. It's so thrilling. Am I at the right spot here? So, obviously this episode is brought to you by Stance. Thank you, Stance. You guys are phenomenal. Stance are one of my favorite. You can see I have my Star Wars on at the moment. I have like a collection of different
Star Wars
socks.
fan.
They are the tits. So we wanted to gift you from Stance.
Nice.
They
Thank
love
you.
you. They love your work. They were very excited to have you here, and so they wanted to make sure that you left with a package.
That's so nice.
So you can choose.
This is a great choice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, what a
One is a white bag that says Stance.
Yeah.
And the other is a white bag that says Stance. The other.
Okay, I'll go for the other.
The first.
No.
The other.
The other.
Okay. I don't know what's inside them.
I'm not going to look.
And also, you can trade them out and tell me if there's anything different that you want. You can.
I'm not going to look on screen.
I mean, it's up to you.
No.
No, because then you got to do the, oh, wow. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Do the big reveal there.
Yeah. Originally, we had like a package put aside specifically for you. And then we had a guest in that was like, that's really cool. And I was like, okay. So I need a phone Stance. Yeah, I'll phone them for you this week. I don't know what's inside there.
Rude.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you very much, Stance. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, you'll find out afterwards. Thank you, Stance. You guys are phenomenal. If you just go to the link below this video, you can go and shop everything off of their sites, and they always have sales. Pull in there. They're amazing. I wanted to ask you in closing,
Yes.
2 different moments in your life that I think are pretty fundamental towards being a comedian. The first is when I ask you of like your biggest bomb, what comes to mind? And when I ask you, I mean, of your biggest success for you personally, that was like a milestone. Maybe it was being on, being picked for Trevor Noah's show, or maybe being picked for Netflix. It's Only Jokes, right?
Only jokes.
Only Jokes Allowed, which was so sick. The stage for that was so sick with those art,
Yeah, they did a
the
good
purple, almost said orange again. Phenomenal.
you,
So
thank
yeah.
you.
So to you, what are the?
I'm going to answer that in a simple way,
Okay.
because I will say that I'm going to say it's the same event.
Wow.
Just because that's how I feel like answering that question right now.
Okay.
So there have been lots of like great milestones, like Trevor like being chosen to do that thing. Nationwild, it was amazing. It was like the first televised thing that I had done, and it went so well. It was like, it was a set that like on TV was the best thing I had ever done at that point.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool because it doesn't always go like that, believe me.
Yeah.
But it was like that exact, it just was great. I will tell you a little story about that just quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
Because we were speaking about forgetting. That show, that it's a 15-minute set. I worked on it very, very hard on that 15-minute set. I changed out a few things quite soon before the show.
Okay.
And I did a show the night before. In fact, a bunch of us from that show did a show the night before.
As like a practice?
Yeah, we did lots of little practice runs, but only at like local gigs, very dingy local gigs, right? With like 10 people. That's where we practiced our show that was being televised in front of 2,000 people the next night. But we were doing it on little club shows, right? I did 2 shows the night before and bombed at both. Okay? Changed up the set, did the second one, still bombed. And a lot of the people bombed that night. They were just like, and we were all miserable. It was the night before the shoot, and we were all just horrified because it just did not go well for anyone, and we were all scared and nervous. Anyway, come the night of the shoot, we're like, screw it, doesn't matter, we know the stuff is good, let's go, right?
Which is also inadvertently very brave.
Yes.
To be like, oh, I still just know it will work.
Yes. Well, it's experience, right? You have enough evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so that night didn't go well, but it's gone well every other time.
Again, the average.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I got on stage, rehearsed the set 1,000 times, got on stage. But to be fair, we got called up for that thing maybe 10 days before we shot. So we didn't rehearse it for like a month or 2 months or whatever. It was 10 days. We're shooting this thing in 10 days. Let's go. And I got on stage. It's this beautiful audience. Trevor has set it up unbelievably well. I'm the third person to go on. It's like a sweet spot.
That's
it's like
nice timing. Yeah.
the room is full. You know, my parents are in the audience. Every single comic is up in the wings. It's like the most amount of pressure I've ever been under in my entire life. Trevor is like standing right next to me backstage. Like, are you ready? Yes. Okay. Because the other guy's coming off, right? Trevor goes out, announces me, right? I come on. I do the first joke. And then I go completely blank. When I tell you blank, I'm like, nothing. There's nothing in my brain.
Oh, that is genuine fear.
Okay. Not only is there nothing in my brain, it's like, I know the end of the show. Like, I know the end. I know I could go to jokes later in the set.
Yeah.
But if I go to the jokes later in the set, I've got nothing after that. I can't come back, right? And remember, I'm like 2-3 years into comedy. Like, I don't have any other stuff, you know? So I'm like, I feel all of the blood, like, just drained from my body. Like, I just can't feel my body. I'm like, it was one of the most petrifying moments of my life. And then I waffle. And you can see it if you watch the set. It's like I say a few words. I literally waffle. I say like, yeah, so anyway, it's stuff like that. It lasts maybe 2 seconds, but in my mind, it was a minute. Okay.
Oh, in your mind, it's like an hour's gone by. Yeah.
And then it comes back to me. It comes back to me in this like rush of euphoria that the rest of that set is good not because I am so happy to tell the jokes and it's going so well, which it did. It's because I am so excited that I have remembered.
You're like, yes!
So okay. I am on another cloud because of the joy and the thrill of the information coming back to my brain. I am so utterly like delighted that I have remembered. And that's what that set is. It's just me being so happy that this shit has come back to me.
My word.
So that's that thing. But let's put that aside. You talk about like a bomb and a milestone, right?
Yeah.
I started doing these shows in Europe recently, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I did my first show in Zurich, my first like solo show, right? I had done it, a different kind of show in London, but it had a theme and it had a break and it had audience interaction. It was like a sort of a formatted show.
Okay.
But now I was doing a solo show in Zurich for the first time. And I won't explain why I did it there, but it's just the way that like it worked out for me. Somebody helped me sell a show and I sold tickets there and I managed to fill this room. And but the show had to have a break as well. So it's like the way that you do shows in Europe a lot of the time is the venue needs a break so that people will go to the bar and
I see. So that they make their money.
because you make your money on the tickets, they get the bar. And I was so nervous for the show because, and I hadn't been nervous in a long time, but I was so nervous because it was like the first time I'm doing a solo show on my own, no opening act, no host, nothing. It's just me. And there has to be a break. So it's like half an hour, 40 minutes up front, a 15-minute break, and then another 45 minutes or so.
That's long.
It's long.
Because you give them enough time to cool off.
Correct. Or whatever, right? Depends. You can lose momentum, right? If you're there and it's going badly, you can just keep going until it ends and then leave, right? That's it. There's nothing you can do. In a show with a break, if you bomb in the first half, you have to go back out there. And I was very insecure about doing this show because I just didn't think I had enough for those 2 segments. And I went out, did the show. It's not a big show, maybe like 80 people, but it's enough to be intimidating.
Of course.
And
80 is arguably worse than 800.
well, yeah, it's usually harder.
Yeah, because I can see each individual face with 80. Yeah.
So anyway, I do the show. It does not go well, the first half. Like, I would call it a bomb. I tank the first half of the show. I go into the green room and I'm just dying. I'm like texting my comedian friends and I'm like, I'm never doing stand-up again.
Yeah.
Fuck this job. It's not for me. This is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to do this.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to find something else. I don't know what it is, but I'll find it.
Yeah, you're going to go back to that physiotherapist and just be like, switch.
Let me know.
Yeah.
How's this? How do I get into this? And I was just like mad. I was just so upset. And then I went back out and I didn't do great. I actually thought I went out pumped because I was like, my second half is better. I know it's better, right? Okay. You know, it's like a more solid hour. It's the actual show, right? The first part was floundering. This part, you know what? I'm going to pick this back up. I like got myself all like amped, you know, and I went back out and also just did not go. Not so, it wasn't like the worst I've ever bombed in my life, but it was bad. It was bad for people to have spent money on to come out and see the show and like the thing they had set aside their Saturday night for. You know what I mean? Like, I would not have set my Saturday night aside to go to see this show.
And what? Just because it was off. It was.
In retrospect, I now know what it was. It was me feeling so insecure, and also I didn't have my material right, and things weren't in their right place.
Okay.
The reason I'm telling you about this is because it was a huge milestone for me. It was a terrible show, right? But also, it was a massive breakthrough because I never experienced that again. It never went badly like that again.
Wow.
After that, I learned how to do a solo show on my own in any city, in any place, to any audience, because also this was a Swiss audience, okay? If I had come out and done that show in London, maybe it would have been different. But
I see.
To do the show like that in front of a Swiss audience who don't really know comedy, so you need to have a really firm hand, you really need to know what you're doing, and you need to know them. You need to understand who you're in front of.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really taught me everything I needed to know to do what I'm doing now, which is solo show, touring in Europe, in all these different cities. And it was a huge breakthrough. And if I hadn't done it, and if I hadn't been pushed to do it, a friend of mine pushed me to do it. And if I hadn't been pushed to do it, I wouldn't have done it because I would have been too scared.
Yeah.
And I would have thought I wasn't ready. And the thing is, I wasn't ready.
But you never are, right?
In a way.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. And then after that show, I was ready. And so it was like a massive breakthrough for me and a massive thing of like reminding me to take huge leaps.
Yeah.
Take a huge leap. Go from half an hour to an hour. You know, go somewhere. Do a thing you've never tried before in the show. Like, do 5 minutes. Somebody gives you an opportunity, go do it. Okay, to be fair, it's not good to be reckless, right? If there are some opportunities that you
planned risk. Yeah.
You shouldn't take because it'll set you up for disaster. It's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
But a certain level of a leap where the stakes are very high, you could fail, but it's not going to end your career.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Those 100 people are not going to end my career.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it was a big bomb, but it was also a huge breakthrough. And those are the little things that people don't see, that people are like, oh, you're doing great. Yeah, but I also am willing to go out in front of 100 people and tank.
And that's what's so dope about being such a professional at what it is that you do and loving what you do, is that you're willing to do that.
Yeah.
That you're willing to say, okay, cool, I'll let 100 people go, what the fuck was that?
Absolutely.
So that the next time I do it, everyone's like, that was phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I see it in people's lives. Because comedians are always very attuned to the idea of comedy as a very much a prism for life. And I see people wanting to make progress in where they are and what they're doing, or they're not making progress personally. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not willing to do this thing. You are not willing to fail publicly and hard.
Yeah.
And I get that. But also, you cannot then point at people and go, but why do they have that?
I see. Yeah.
Because they were willing to go out and fail in a
1,000%. Yeah. I dig that.
Cool.
That's a good life lesson to end on.
Yes.
Go out and fail.
Go out and fail.
Yeah.
You don't have to fail, but be willing to.
But understand that it could happen.
Yes. Try not to.
I mean, we try not to every single time, right? Every audition I do, I'm like, please work me.
People are like, I know how to do stand-up comedy. I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and fail.
People are going to watch this now and be like, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Believe in yourself.
Out of the 100 that try, one will be good.
That's it.
There you go. I'm happy with that. Gilli, thank you for being here.
Thank
you for coming in. This was so much fun.
Very nice.
Thank you for dealing with my 1,000 questions about comedy. I find what you do fascinating.
About comedy. I find it fascinating too.
There we go. When are your next shows in Cape Town specifically? And then any others that you want to
No shows in Cape Town for the foreseeable future.
Damn, I wanted to come watch you now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You could have come last night. You missed it.
But you didn't tell me about last night.
Sorry. No shows in Cape Town for the time being.
Okay.
Only releasing this podcast.
In like 3-4 weeks.
Okay. The only show that I know is happening is December in Johannesburg.
Okay.
At Theatre on the Square.
Oh, wow. That's a big venue, isn't it?
It's big. Well, it's big for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Congrats. That's dope.
5 or 6 nights at Theatre on the Square.
It's like,
in Sandton, in Johannesburg, first week of December.
Okay, so we have to go to Joburg.
Get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll try come to Joburg.
Oh, come
we'll try
to
catch you there. Europe.
Yeah.
That's cool.
London, Barcelona, Lisbon, Madrid, Porto, Frankfurt, Helsinki, Oslo.
Just like,
I'm going to have a nervous breakdown saying all this shit.
you're like, oh, I just realized what I have to do. Yeah.
Luxembourg.
I saw your one bit from Luxembourg.
Oh, cool.
That was good because you acknowledged this. I'm trying to overstudy something, but you acknowledged what was going on and then made it funny. That you took the piss out of the audience.
Natural comedy.
And they found it funny that you did that. I just thought that was so much fun to see.
Describe all of comedy.
Pretty much. But it was like, go watch the bit and you'll see what I mean. But you were literally you were self-deprecating, but at the same time taking the piss out of the audience, and at the end you both won. It was cool the way that you did that. It was dope.
Didn't smash the microphone as I did it, but thank you very much. I appreciate that.
But thank you for being here. Thank you, Stance, as well. We love you guys, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning back into Storytime. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, I loved it.